because it's so tight-knit, you can just work with vendors and manufacturers like that. They're really approachable because they want the same thing, I guess. They want more FPV. You know, everyone says build your drone so that you know how it's built and how to solder and all that stuff like that. But the main reasoning for me...
All right, so Kevin and I met a few months ago at the New Zealand Drone Racing Nationals, and quite honestly, as we just mentioned prior to this podcast starting, we haven't actually seen each other or talked to each other since then, and that was back in February now. So I thought a good way to throw us both into this whole podcast is to start this episode off a little bit differently to my other ones. What I mean here is I'll throw some quick fire questions at you, FPV related, of course, and you can answer them as quickly as possible. Are you keen for that?
Yeah, okay. I'll give it a go. I'll do my best.
Yes, here we go. On your day off as well. So I've got 6 questions. Are you ready for them then?
Here we go.
All right. Best video transmission system?
TBS, analog, all day.
All right. Favorite controller?
Radio Master Tech 16S.
Favorite place to fly quads?
Anywhere I can put a track.
Best quad frame ever?
Oh, ever?
Ever.
Okay. Alien.
Okay. In one word, what do you like most about FPV?
Racing with friends. Oh, that was like many words.
That was 3 words.
Racing.
Okay, well, there we go. That was my quick fire questions, dude. You did actually really well. I would have been a whole lot more stuck up on those and been like...
Oh, you gave me plenty of warning.
Okay, well, that's fair. That's fair. We did kick off into it pretty well.
Yeah.
But no, it's a nice little way to warm up and sort of get us into talking about FPV, because I'd be pretty keen on starting off on talking about where and when FPV actually started for you. Like, when did you get into the hobby and sort of what sparked that journey for you?
Yeah, of course. So this goes way back now, like 2016 was when I first got into FPV. When I first even learned about it, to be honest, I was just working in the automotive industry at the time, and one of the guys I worked with one day brought in this home-built wooden tricopter. So like he'd just built it from nothing. It was plywood frame with these Banggood motors and ESCs. And it was just this mess, and I had no idea what any of it was. But when I saw it wobbling around in midair, because little did I know what was happening, but it just had no tune, and I was just mesmerized, and I was like, you know what, I need to get me some of that. And then when I just did a little bit more Googling in YouTube and found quads, which looked a lot easier and less fragile than a tricopter. So my attention and obsession shifted straight to quads, and FPV naturally was part of that at that emerging time, and I just went all in.
Epic. So did you ever like actually get into the tricopter side of things, or was that just like the introduction and you didn't touch it? You just went straight into the quads?
I went straight into the quads, and I never, like, I don't know, like every 6 months or so, I'd like Google tricopters and stuff, and I'd think about getting one, because I'd always, and even now, like sometimes I'll like think about, oh, it'd be cool to build a tricopter, but that's only because it's like a reminiscent thing of like my first thing that I saw.
Yeah,
but I don't really want a tricopter.
Yeah, fair. I mean, they do the specific tricopter racing, I believe, right? Like that is a thing.
Wow, I've never heard of that, but that sounds
right
scary.
on. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was when I was talking with Thomas that he mentioned that there's like actual tricopter racing as a thing. So
oh yeah, okay.
Hey, if you ever want to, Kevin, there is a point in time that you could go into the tricopter space and race in that space. You know, who knows?
Yeah, okay. I'll give it some thought, but it doesn't surprise me that it came from Thomas either. If you can race it, Thomas knows about it.
Yeah, absolutely. He was showing me like all of these quads and stuff when he was first getting into it. Like, you're talking homemade wooden quads, like, which is what the tricopter that you just mentioned. Yeah. And like he's showing me all of these crazy as like I don't know, completely random setups and just absolutely sporadic, which is I guess what a lot of the space would have looked like back in 2016, is it? Or is that sort of like, was it fairly advanced into the quad space? Like when you were getting into it,
no, so
what were you building? Were you building like sort of picking parts from random crap and figuring it out, or like was there like sort of a building quad space at that point in time?
Yeah, so it was very much on that cusp looking back at it. So when I first started doing a bit more YouTube and Google research, I was finding a lot of custom stuff. I was finding a lot of the QAV 250 frames. I was finding um, the early versions of Runcams and Foxeers that were made, like the HS1177s, the ones that were made for FPV drones, pretty much. So that was like the very start of when it became a bit more, I don't know, I wouldn't call it mainstream, but a bit more manufactured.
Yeah,
It was prior to that, it was all what people could find that worked together, and with a bit of know-how, they got it working. But yeah, when I started getting into it, 2016, 2017, that was definitely when um, the dedicated stuff sort of started getting a bit more prevalent. And you
yeah.
could just go to a shop, not in New Zealand, but you could just go to an online shop and buy what you needed to build a drone. And that sort of started around then, I think.
Okay, okay. So yeah, that's sort of 2016, sort of the big turning point, I guess. Then when things started, like you're saying, became yeah, I guess more commercialized, more actually manufactured and into the space. So that's
Mm,
interesting to hear. So what did you build when you first got started? Were you straight into the racing scene? Was like that your introduction
no,
into things? No. What are we
no,
starting off with?
I didn't race for probably good 2 years.
Oh wow.
I
What were
didn't
we doing in
start,
those
yeah,
two
till
years?
2 years. The first 2 years was just like freestyle stuff. So
Okay.
when I got into it, I built my first drone off like AliExpress stuff.
Yeah.
So it was like the frame was a clone. I'm trying to remember which one it was. It wasn't a frame of QAV. No, it was a frame of the ZMR clone of the ZMR 250. So hulking beast of a frame.
Yeah.
And it had 1804 motors with 6-inch bi-blade props. Picture that. Um,
Right
and
on. Okay.
12 amp Simon K ESCs. And those ESCs, anyone that knows about those ESCs will know that if you look at them the wrong way, they'll just burst into flames. 'Cause,
Sick.
yeah, so the first time I tried to arm this drone and hover it out in the driveway, um, I it was everything was working fine, a little hover, and then when it came down to land, I didn't immediately hit disarm because this was my first ever flight. I was figuring it out on the fly.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and then I clicked disarm, but apparently those little bumps around on the ground were enough to flame 3 ESCs. so
Three of them.
yeah,
Chapers.
yeah. So reliability's
Substantial.
come a long way.
Yeah, sounds like it. Jeepers.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Um, but there
you're
were individual
freestyling, right?
ESCs
Like,
back.
yeah, well, that's a great point, right? Because I actually had no idea about individual. I didn't even know individual ESCs were a thing. And like when I because I've only recently built my first quad. I bought a 4-in-1 ESC. I was like, why is this called 4-in-1? Like, I asked one of my mates, and they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, why is it a 4-in-1 ESC? Like, isn't it just an ESC? Like,
Yeah.
no, you need an ESC for each of the motors. It's built into the one. I'm like, oh no way. They're like, yeah, they're all individually mounted, all the arms. Like, that's how they used to be. I'm like, whoa, this is like crazy. But I guess that's a fairly new-ish thing, right? Like, it wasn't
Yeah.
actually that long ago that they were all individual still.
Yeah, that's right. Probably, I don't know when I switched to 4-in-1 ESCs. It seems like the majority of the time I've been flying, it's been 4-in-1. So
Right.
it was probably around that 2018 period, I think, was when 4-in-1 started becoming more common, especially with racing.
Yeah.
Because people, you want to keep the weight and size down. So as soon as they became available, they were kind of adopted by the racing scene.
Right. Yeah, that
I
makes
think the
sense.
freestyle scene took a little longer to catch on just because of that. Singles were still available. They weren't as worried about weight. So no reason to go to a 4-in-1 at that point.
Yeah, man. When you're freestyling back in your 2016, like, those first 2 years, are you just cruising out on your own and just going out for flights, or have you got,
Oh,
mates you're going out
yeah.
with?
Had a few real good mates. from back then that I flew with quite regularly. One especially was Tyza. I don't know if you've heard of Tyza,
I
Tyrone.
haven't personally,
Damn.
no, but
He's
I'm sure
he's
there'll be people listening that
yeah.
have.
Yeah, oh, for sure. He's pretty well known, especially in the Wellington region. He's a pretty awesome dude. He's a freestyle guy. Me and him, probably the first couple of years when I started flying and only doing freestyle, a lot of it was me and him going out flying on random missions out to like the coasts, try to find some abandoned building,
Yo,
and then do other stuff as well that I won't mention because it might not have been strictly legal, or we may or may not have even done it. But
yeah, no, definitely not.
yeah, it was so we had real good times. But
They,
family happens, and I've moved on to more racing, but I still talk to him and quite a bit online. And yeah, but there's so many amazing characters that you meet through FPV.
yeah,
All kinds of characters. It's
yeah,
great.
you're so right there. It is genuinely like my favorite part that I only really recently discovered about FPV as well. Because
Mm,
before going to New Zealand, like opens with the nationals, I was genuinely of the understanding that New Zealand just had no FPV pilots. I was like, well, there's just
mm,
nobody around. I've looked online. I'm like, there's no FPV parks. There's no places. Like, there's nothing. I can't find anything. And like, I'd sort of skimmed over racing, and I've been like, oh, that's not really like what I do. I don't go
mm,
out to race. I would just go out to fly.
mm.
And then like post New Zealand Opens, I've now got like six odd people in Wanaka with me that we go out flying pretty much every single week, multiple times,
That's
and like
awesome.
they're all such cool people, and I keep in touch with you know the lads over in Christchurch, and it's just very it's a very cool part about FPV, and especially the racing scene. Which when did you get into racing? So would that be around 2018, 2019?
Yeah, it would have been 2018, 2019, somewhere around there. I couldn't pinpoint it exactly, but I just started heading along to the Wellington race days at the time, and I got hooked. I was always at the bottom at the start. Just like everyone is when they first start racing, you got to start at the bottom.
Yeah,
But everyone, it doesn't matter whether you're the fastest guy there or the slowest guy there. Everyone's treated the same. Everyone's having a good time and having a yarn, and
yeah.
that's what it's all about. And that's what got me hooked on going back and just keep going back. And then eventually, I got a bit more competitive, where I and started practicing more and whatnot. But nah, it's still a race day. I'm looking forward to just catching up with everybody more than racing, to be honest.
Yeah, wow, that's pretty special, dude. That's
Mm,
pretty cool to like hear, especially from yourself and knowing that you're definitely competitive. You're definitely a great racer.
oh, thank you.
How many? Well, I
Appreciate
mean,
that.
hey, I've seen the DVR footage, man. Half that stuff I can't even tell what's happening. So you know, there's like this fine line between what I understand when I watch DVR
Mm,
and then like what I'm just like, this is either sped up or I have zero understanding of anything. and
yeah,
and you're
yeah.
you're on that side. You're the
Oh, well, thanks.
the
Appreciate
fast
it.
DVR. Well, no, I mean, I guess that's what you get after because you start practicing
Mm,
fairly consistently. How consistently are we talking when you start getting into
yeah.
racing?
If you want to get if you want to get competitive and you want to get near the top of wherever you are, you do have to put in the time. It's a decent whack of time too, like to get quite good. For me, I started off showing a little bit of progress, finishing in the midfield in races and whatnot, and then I did a lot of looking at the faster guys' DVR. I started trying to really figure out where I could get quicker,
Is that her?
and I knew that it was just practice, but I wanted to figure out what I was doing wrong as well. And to be honest, it is just stick time. So I was, the common things. You're blowing out corners. You're overcorrecting here and there. And I thought, yeah, sure, I can work on those individually, but ultimately, just practicing, just flying hours, gets rid of those issues. And that's what I did. So I would fly probably 2 to 3 2 to 3, maybe even 4 days a week after work. So I would just set up 5 to 6 gates, 5 to 6 flags, try to make half of it uncomfortable to fly. You want to get comfortable being uncomfortable,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And basically just trying to fly as quickly as possible. Just get as many packs in as you can. So when you're practicing by yourself or just with another guy, you go out to the field and you're like, okay, this is a practice session. And it's like head down, battery swap, battery swap, battery swap. And you just like go out there and you're in that zone and that mindset. And that's pretty cool, but you don't want to you get sick of that after a while. I don't really practice like that anymore.
I guess when you're extremely dedicated to a cause, though, and like when there's a point in time where you just really want to get super good at something and you like become laser focused on it. That's where you're putting in like multiple times,
That's
like
right.
a day. And how many packs are you putting through on one of those days?
Oh, on one of those days, I would probably do 50 to 60 packs.
Holy shit, that's mental.
But that's like fractions compared to the professionals.
Jeepers. Here I am sitting with 5 batteries thinking like
Yeah.
that's a good deal.
Yeah, but I was back then I didn't really have much either. I had probably 6 batteries at any one time.
Yeah.
And I made do with like a couple of used car batteries that I'd grabbed from friends. I had a couple of big 4S 10,000 milliamp lipos that I'd managed to score on a special. So all of those things I would be recharging with like one of those, those blue B6 chargers, those real bad ones.
Yeah, I've got one sitting, literally right down here.
Yeah.
I've got one. That's what I'm still using.
Oh, okay. Well, they're not that quick.
No, they're not. All right, really quickly, I want to mention that these podcast episodes are currently sponsored by no one other than myself. And hey, I do love making these episodes for you guys. However, it does take a lot of time to organize them, record them, and then edit them together. So if you feel like you're getting something valuable out of this, whether that's some tips or even just a laugh, I would love for you to head over to my Patreon to see how you can help support the running of the show. There's a link in the description below, or just head over to patreon.com/Brody Reed. All right, back to the episode.
And they're actually fine if you're just doing, just casual use. They are perfectly fine. But what I was doing with them was I was trying to charge these 12-volt car batteries. I was trying to charge these big 4S 10,000 milliamp packs, and then my 6 drone batteries with it.
Yeah.
All like just basically daily.
Yeah.
So that I could then get the most recharges on at the field, with those 6 batteries I had, and sometimes I could go for hours, but you'd find yourself waiting for batteries to charge every now and again, and it can be a bit frustrating. But you do make, when, like you say, when you get that passion and you just want to get better, obstacles like that you can overcome with some ingenuity.
Yeah, man, you make that's a great point. Car batteries, and you make it work, right? And just sort of you keep going towards that dream. Oh, we're getting inspirational. Gotta love it.
Nice.
But so you're racing 2019, sort of that's when you're starting into it. When are you getting when you started to go off to, I guess, bigger race events and stuff, and taking part in race events like overseas, national sort of side of things? When you go into that sort of side of things?
So that it all started around the same time. So
okay, straight into it.
2018, the end of 2018, which was basically when I was starting to get when I decided that basically all I wanted to do was race, and I can't even really be bothered going out to do freestyle anymore.
Yeah.
That was near the end of 2018, and that coincided with the 2018 Military International Drone Racing Tournament, the very first one of those that ever happened. And I just somehow happened to hear about it, and I work for NCDF, and I put my hand up to sort of try to put a team together and lead it to go. And so that was my first time going overseas to race drones, and I was still relatively a noob, and was flying against other militaries like the Australian Army drone racing team. Can't actually remember who else was at that one. It's so long ago now. But then not long after that, at the beginning of 2019, was the very first NZ Open that was ever held. I
Wow.
had nothing to do with the running of that one at the time. But I also went to that, placed quite averagely. But then every year, sort of, there's been either our national one or something similar. It wasn't till it was later 2019. I went to the first Australian event on my own, not as a part of the military team.
Right.
So I went to the Australian Nationals with a bit of a Kiwi contingent. Who came with us then? It was FPV Doug, now commonly referred to as FPV Dog. You'd be lucky to see him fly these days. It's a rare sight. Gang, who I believe has been on your show.
He has. He has.
Gang's a legend. Always will be. Always has been. And then there was Spastic as well. He hasn't flown for a wee while either, but he's pretty decent. And we had a pretty cool trip. And that one really got me hooked on the whole overseas trip side of things as a group. So, and then after
Yeah.
that, I've been to the. What else have we been to? We've been to the 2022 Aussie Nationals.
Yeah.
Obviously, every NZ Open since. Wherever it's been, I've been there. There's not really too much more than that, but if there's a reasonably large race, or any race to be honest, it's driving distance from me, I'll be there.
Yeah.
But if there's a reasonably large race within a few hours of flying, I'll do my best to be there as well.
That's epic. That's cool, man. Did you ever
Yeah.
go up to Auckland for any of their races?
I went up to a regional in Auckland one time.
Okay.
I think that might have been around 2018, 2019. I couldn't remember exactly. But it was like a regional event that they put on. It might have even been the last Auckland race that was put on.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
And that was real fun. Gang was there. I think he might have placed on the podium somewhere. I didn't, but that doesn't matter.
It was 2018.
Yeah, exactly. It's a long time ago.
Yeah, man. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
those
I would love to
those
see.
Auckland.
I would love to see
This,
the Auckland scene roaring with racing again. It's really a shame. I do a lot of race organising. If there's anyone that listens or watches that is from Auckland and wants to start doing it and wants tips, reach out. I don't mind.
heck yeah, that's the spirit. I've actually you might struggle a little bit getting some of the Auckland scene going again. I've got all their gates.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Uh,
that's going to make it difficult.
they're in Wanaka now.
Sweet. Okay, well,
Yeah,
that's fine. We've got Wanaka going. That's something.
that's something. That's something. Yeah, another South
Yeah.
Island. But yeah, dude. That all those gates they were given to me by I can't remember the guy's name, but he used to be one of the like main event organizers
Ashton?
for the. No,
No, it wasn't Ashton. Okay, sorry. I'll stop guessing.
no, that's fine. But hey, there was a really cool guy. I always forget the name, but yeah, he reached out to me and he was like, "Hey, look, this is these I've got these gates, and you're welcome to have them. Just I'm in Auckland. I just happened to be flying up to Auckland and for another job, and then I picked them up and flew them back down in a big old box and." Now they're
Awesome.
here in Wanaka, and yeah, it's quite funny. I set the gates up and we raced with them here, and then Gang Jackson sent me through some of his DVR footage from when he was in Auckland racing at presumably the event that you were just talking about, and he's like,
Possibly.
those are the exact same gates. I'm like, that's wild. Like this
That's
DVR
cool.
of of him flying these gates, however long ago now,
That
like,
is
and now they're
awesome.
just here. Like whoever bought those gates. Godsend because they've just been getting used consistently for
Oh,
so long now, which is awesome. So
that's
that's
great to
cool.
hear.
Yeah, I'm always curious about the Auckland scene because I haven't heard much about it since when I've been into FPV,
Mm.
and obviously I've only been into the racing sort of side of things and for a couple of months now. So I haven't really heard of much in Auckland, but it's just always interesting to me because it
Yeah.
seems to be such a small like community that's there now, but it would kind of make sense for it to be a big community being a big place.
I think from what I've heard, I think there's a reasonably large community of like FPV pilots in Auckland, but
Right.
it just doesn't really have much of a race scene. They're all kind of I think a lot of it comes down to the size. It takes a lot to travel across Auckland, and
Yeah.
it's from what I used to see. There was always they'd always struggle to get people going. They'd always struggle to get all their members of a club going to one race because they didn't all want to travel there.
Yeah.
And it made things really difficult, and it probably always will make it a little bit difficult. So I don't really know how best to attract people a bit more, but I think they do have a decent community of like freestylers and people that just want to film stuff, which
Nice.
is still cool in itself. They're still out there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
Yeah,
you're based in Wellington, right?
I live in the Wairarapa, but
Okay.
basically Wellington. I travel over to the hut daily.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's where you've got a racing club there too, which do you do the organizing for that side of things?
Yeah, so me and a guy by the name of Paul, better known as Thixis, as
Yeah.
his FPV name. Me and him run Drone Racing Wellington, which it's a pretty unofficial sort of organization, but it's the race organization in Wellington,
Yeah,
and
cool.
we try to put on a race just about every month. We get out to parks and practice most weekends. Paul's a real absolute legend of New Zealand FPV. He's the one that hauls our massive plethora of track equipment day in and day out
Yeah.
to parks, and he's there half an hour to an hour before everyone. I'll ask him when he's getting there so I can make sure I'm there early too. And
Yeah, yeah.
he'll be there half an hour before that time again. Have half the track set
Before
up.
well before you, even though you're
Yeah,
getting there early. Yeah,
he's
yeah.
he's too good, and um, so yeah. But we have a pretty smooth operation. He he pretty much like will take care of a lot of the maintenance on all of our track stuff,
Cool.
um, endlessly, like tirelessly, and asks nothing for it. And then on the same vein, I do the more sort of admin type stuff, and like promotional type stuff. So just like basically telling everyone there's a race on social media and just trying to drill it into people. Otherwise, if they don't hear about it, they forget about it.
Yeah, I mean that's literally it. If it's not in
So
sight and it goes out of mind.
yeah, so I'm trying to remember to be hammering that kind of stuff regularly, and then also I do most of the running on the techie side of it on the race day. So, and we've recently upgraded to a setup which we'll soon be able to stream racing with.
Oh,
So,
nice.
probably a year or two back, we got a Immersion RC Lap RF 8-way, which is like a Gucci race timer.
Right, right.
And well, everyone in our club, we basically said, look, who wants to pitch in a bit of money and we can replace the dodgy timer that we've been using. And like, basically everyone was like, sweet, here's $50, here's blah, blah, blah. So like within
Yo,
like a day, we'd had enough money to buy this $600 timer.
that's all
Um,
good.
yeah, so it's just how much everyone in the club just, just wants it to do well and to be
Yeah,
better, and it makes it a better experience for everyone too, having a good timing system.
yeah.
One that you're
Good
not having to
timing
fiddle
system.
with and is reliable.
Yeah, that's when you're racing, times are kind of important, I guess.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And so fast forward the streaming setup we just got. We funded in a very similar way. We did a raffle on our Facebook group, and then also took some donations. And that's the HT0 Event VRX system. So
Cool.
we're now able to pick up analog and HD0 and have that going in through the trackside software with the timer. And very soon, once we've got our power requirements sorted properly with regards to, because we don't get power at any of the sites we run from, so we've just got to get a nice balanced electrical battery type setup for it, and then we'll be streaming all our races. People will be able to tune in and cheer on their favorite Wellington racer.
So good. Love that. Yeah. Okay, let's go. Let's go. It's interesting. So that's an HD0 system, but you yourself, you what, like to stick with analog currently, or are you moving towards HD0?
Oh, so yeah, HD0 is probably the system I'll switch to.
Right.
Not sure when or what the product will be, because I just saw there was a Air VDX that's come out. That's HD0 or something.
Oh, right
So
on.
that's exciting. So for me, the roadblock at the moment is basically money. I
Yeah.
can't really afford personally to be running HD0 at the moment, and while I'm not having any major setbacks on the analog system I've got, I'm still running it, and I feel like it's not far off with regards to performance anyway. Because where analog is at is now, the technology's pretty refined. You've got like the HDO2s. They might not even be the best, but I've got the HDO2s with the rapid fire, and then you've got a TBS 69, which is a tiny 20 by 20 board, which has got everything you need.
Yep.
The antennas are tiny. They're the same antennas on HD0, but um, the CRSF system for that I use for changing all the channels on my quads once, and then when you plug them in, it's done. That's all just so easy and, relatively speaking, cheap,
Yeah.
and the image quality is quite incredible compared to where it was in 2016 from where I came from. So
I can
I haven't.
imagine.
When there will be a point where I'm on HD0 though.
Yeah.
I just don't know when that is. It's monetary at the moment. It's a bit
Yeah,
expensive
that's
for me
fair.
to be running that in a race drone that
But
I'm always bashing.
I was gonna say it's great in order to make the one-time investment, but the thing is, it's not a one-time investment. It's how many cameras am
No,
I gonna go through? How many
cameras and
lenses am I gonna break?
VTXs. Yeah,
Yeah,
cameras,
yeah, that's so
VTXs. Those things aren't one-time purchases, and I'm already buying enough of them, and the price difference and the stuff I'm buying now, and that is too great at the moment.
yeah, yeah. I'm sure it'll come down at
But
some
it's a
point, but
dream. It's a dream. I I have even considered going to the HD0 goggles first, like just going straight to those
okay,
goggles and running them on my current analog setups, because
right,
I tried I tried someone's HD0 goggles with my analog drones a couple of weeks ago, and it was pretty awesome experience. Not gonna lie, like
yeah,
they're
okay,
really smooth screens. It's almost like you've got better frame rate even on analog. Um,
wow,
so when I went back to my HDO2s, it was a couple of days before I thought they were good again, because the
and
HD
they're like
zero
some of the
goggles,
top of the line ones, anyways.
yeah, because the HD0 goggles made them look bad.
Wow,
So I was thinking,
that's a
so
feat.
yeah, so that's a step I could take in the very immediate future, I guess, is upgrading to the HD0 goggle
Yeah,
long before switching the drones over.
yeah, that's fair. I mean, I flew. It's funny because I'm kind of like the exact opposite. I went from flying a DJI digital system with the
Mm,
original air unit, and then I went and built my first quad and put analog into it, and then converted like my old DJI goggles to have the analog coming in and whatnot. But when I put analog on and I took off for the first time, I genuinely, like, I can't even explain this properly, but I genuinely didn't actually know what I was looking at. Like, when I took off, I was like, oh my God. I actually don't know what is in front of me right now. And like
yeah,
now I can put
yeah,
it on and I'm like, it's fine. But wow, going from seeing in digital to going back to analog
yeah,
was like, holy crap. But now I've sort of separated the two between my air units are for like my freestyly side of things, and then I've got my race quad, which is specifically for racing, and I'm like, yeah,
yeah.
I can understand the differences now, but yeah, I'm like the exact
Being able,
opposite. It's,
being able to mentally separate them is good, because I feel like not everyone can do that. I can, no problem, but
yeah,
I know some people that find it hard to get past going down from an HD feed to an analog one, and that can, and I understand it. Like, it's not nice to go down to an analog feed.
it's not ideal, but it's kind of I don't it's weird because I can't even say it's nostalgic, but it kind of feels nostalgic to me in a way. Like I don't know, it feels more traditional to like how
Yeah,
FPV I guess used to be, and I don't know,
well,
I actually really enjoy the whole analog side of things, even though it's a
yeah,
visual downgrade.
you're right, and it is like a whole side of things, and that's something that probably a few years ago when I was trying to explain to some guy, I can't remember his name now, but there was a guy who came to me asking just for some advice. He was getting into drones for the first time, and I told him that your best bet is to build your drone. And one of the points was, everyone says build your drone so that you know how it's built and how to solder and all that
Yeah.
stuff like that. But the main reasoning for me to building your own drone is anyone can learn how to solder in 5 minutes. Anyone can learn how to put some pieces of carbon fiber together. But not everyone understands radio frequencies and how they operate. So
Oh yeah.
for
Oh yeah.
me, for me, the important part is trying to get people to understand the 5.8 gig band, the channel sets we use, why certain channels are used at a race day, and why we can't use those ones. So getting into FPV and building analog and learning how to operate that analog VTX, I feel like it's almost a crucial first step with
That
FPV, is to with regards to learning how a lot of this works.
Yeah, you're 100% right there, and honestly, that hit home hard because I bought all the parts for my quad, and when I was putting it together, I didn't understand the difference between a VTX and like the normal, your controller's RX, right?
Yeah,
I had no idea. I was like, well, why do I need, like, what's this extra one for? It's connected to my
yeah,
controller, and surely it's just sending out, you know, signal or something from the camera. I just had no idea. It was,
yeah.
and it's funny to look back on it now because like once it
But
clicked, I was like, oh my god, this makes so much sense. But for
and
that
we all
initial
and we all
time,
start there, and we all start there for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
But hey, I've been
but
flying FPV for like a year and a half at that point, and I had no
yeah,
idea how it
I,
worked. So like,
and see that part to me is surprising, and that's where I guess the DJI factor comes in.
yeah.
Where it's I don't
No,
want
I mean,
to.
I bought pre-builds, so like I had no
Yeah,
idea, and I've never had to fix my pre-build either. So it was like a point of I just
I
had no idea about the parts of the quad. But now I built one. I'm like, oh,
I
that
used to
that
be
makes sense.
when funny you should mention pre-builts, because when pre-builts started becoming more common, I was quite vocal against them because it doesn't help people learn. And
Yeah,
now I actually love pre-builts because they're
yeah,
actually like a really good value drone to buy, and they're usually really nice quality.
and they get people into the
Um,
hobby. That's what I like about them.
and but yeah, the more I thought about it, the more they actually get people in to start with,
Yeah,
and it's easier to get in with that. Um,
it's a massive barrier that I was facing was the point of I
yeah,
didn't want to take the time to build a quad. I saw the
yep,
FPV shots, like being the videographer side of things that I am, and I was like, how do I get that? And I was like, oh, you got to build a quad. And I remember looking into FPV. It was a long time ago, and it wasn't there was no pre-builds at that time. When I was looking into it
mm,
initially, you had to build your quads, and then multiple years later, I looked into it again. And I was like, oh, I could buy my own drone, like just built and just, fly and get my shots. But there was no part of me that ever wanted to build. And then as I got further into it, I was like, oh, I want to try building. And,
yeah,
it actually looks fun. Seeing everyone repairing their drones and shit at New Zealand Opens, I was like, oh, wow.
mm,
Oh, wow. You guys know your stuff. I'm here like, I flight, like that's what
yeah.
I know about my quad, and that's it.
Yeah, but you're several steps ahead of that part now, and all it takes is just giving it a go, eh?
Yeah. But I
Yeah.
definitely, I think, like, yeah,
There's
it's funny
struggles
about that.
though, like I've watched your YouTube channel. You've definitely had your fair share of struggles,
Yeah. Oh,
and
absolutely.
you've learned some hard lessons that most of us have learned as well. But those are also lessons that put a lot of people off
Yes.
at the time as well. So I guess the hardships find who's really passionate about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I,
when
I don't
you're
know. I like making these real simplistic videos of like simple things that people who have been in the hobby would overlook. Like, I
yeah,
don't know. One, for example, is which way do you put your propellers on, right? Like, I was of the understanding that I just was never going to be able to figure it out. I was like, well, I don't get it. The motors must spin this way, so they'll all work like this. And then, it got explained to me. I was like, oh, wow, this is simple as. I was like, I'm
Yeah.
sure there's other people out there like who are just figuring out the same thing as me. Like, may as well
Yep.
make this little simple video on how to put your props on, like which direction. So there's little bits and bobs that I've learned along the way that I'm like just sort of sharing out, but that's all come from building my own
Yeah.
quad as well. So I'm
I
like
like that.
a
There's
massive advocate for building a quad now, which I wasn't
yeah.
before. So
And there's not enough of that kind of content out there, I don't think, because a lot of people are focused on the really cool, flashy stuff.
yeah,
But if you're just showing people a genuine tip that you've learned from experience, that's more valuable than anything.
yeah. I mean, if it can provide the value and if somebody can put their props on the right way now, damn good, mission accomplished. That's the spirit.
Exactly. Exactly. You got it.
But yeah, that's why like I think Joshua Bardwell is such a well-known name in the community
Mm,
because all he does, I mean, yes, he reviews products and stuff, but the majority of people know about him because they've searched something online and been like, how do I, what is this? I don't understand
yeah.
this component. And then, oh, Joshua Bardwell is there, 3
Yeah.
videos on it, learn this whole thing and be able to do it. So yeah,
And
I don't
whether
know. It's,
and whether you were on the side of the fence that likes him or not, you've probably watched, you've definitely heard of, and you have most likely learned something from him.
we mentioned that you're a race organizer and I mean, we discussed, calling professionally event planning. But
Yeah.
what is
Nice.
involved in your what's involved in your professionally event planning?
What's involved?
Yeah,
So not too much, to be honest.
that sounds
We're
like something that someone would say when there's a lot involved.
we're we're a pretty small but tight knit operation in New Zealand. I'm involved specifically only with helping in the Drone Racing Wellington Club. Shout out on my hat here.
Let's go.
And also the New Zealand Open, which I started getting involved with organising and running. Probably, I think it was 2019. No, 2020. It might have been the second one onwards or the third one. Second one onwards.
Right.
And then I've had a hand at organising and running it since. And there's usually like in Wellington, it's just me and Paul, and I've already explained how we operate there. And then with the NZ Open,
Yeah.
it's really similar with the NZ Open. It's the same core group of people. It's about 4 or 5 of us. Myself, Gang, Jackson. And then you've also got Nathan, Speed Demon. You've probably heard of
Yep.
Crypto, who
Yep.
you will have definitely heard of.
Sure did.
Yeah, and so we basically just bounce ideas off each other through Facebook chats, um, that kind of thing,
Cool.
and just take it from there. We don't even plan a whole lot. We come up with a basic idea, and we're like, you know what? Last year's NZ Open was so good. Let's just work towards doing that again.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
generally how we approach it, and then sort of maybe halfway through the year, someone will be like, "Oh, I thought about this. This would be pretty cool," and
Yeah.
then we might all get excited about it, and then boom, it's at the event.
Epic.
So
Epic.
that's and then usually the last sort of 2 weeks before the NZ Open, it's just everyone running around like a headless chicken, actually trying to get it all the stuff done we were all talk about during the
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. So
And
what's
that's
sort of what's your involvement in that side of things? And do you have is there a specific like thing that you do, or is it like just take a part of the event and figure it out and sort of organize it, or is that sort of sectioned out to different people?
yeah. So most things sort of get sectioned out. Take last NZ Open for example. It was based in Christchurch at the home of Red Zone Drone Racing.
Yeah.
And so therefore Seth and Nathan, who are based down there, they took care of all the heavy lifting, all the stuff we needed on site, and permissions with the local control towers and whatnot. And then basically I took care of making sure we had all the extra track equipment we would need from in addition to what Christchurch had.
Yeah.
And then there was the format, the sorting all the constant posting, social media stuff, trying to generate interest, trying to talk with entrants, making sure everyone's all confirmed, receiving their money. Without that, we can't even do it.
Yeah.
We run off very minimal sponsorships, so we basically run off entry fees,
Right.
and it's fully unpaid. So we're basically just trying to get donations from everybody to throw a cool party somewhere and fly drones together.
Heck yeah.
When you wanted to look
That's
at
a
it,
sick way to put it. I love that.
when you look at it from an outside perspective, that's what's happening.
Yeah. Heck yeah, man.
And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Why would you? Why
Yeah,
would
yeah,
you?
yeah. If the only thing, like with the NZ Open specifically, that's kind of the one thing I am quite invested in at this point, and making sure it's cool and it keeps going.
Yeah.
I would like to see that grow a little bit. I wouldn't mind seeing us potentially tapping some more monetary sponsors and potentially putting on a more professional, slicker, bigger event. Maybe have more prize money. But those are all
Yeah.
pipe dreams at the moment. But
You
goals
gotta
for the
have them.
future. Goals for the future, though.
Yeah. Yeah. So with sponsorships, you yourself are sponsored for your racing, is that right?
Yeah, I have 3 sponsors. Sponsored by a local New Zealand shop called Junkie. It's on my shirt here. I'm on the wrong side, somewhere over here. Yeah, called
There we go.
Junkie. Shop based in oh, he's moved now. Coromandel, I think. He's in Coromandel now.
Right on.
Basically, just like any of the drone shops in New Zealand, he'll have everything you need to get flying from nothing. And then I'm also sponsored by HQ Prop and T Motor,
Yeah.
pretty big, high profile names. And those deals basically just help me keep putting in more stick time. So when you get to a point with your training where you're doing it a lot or you're flying a lot, you're breaking a lot. So um, approaching these vendors, manufacturers, and stuff, and trying to work deals with them if you can is great. It's not free stuff though; it's a two-way thing. So
Yeah.
there's a constant expectation of promotion and things like that, and that's great because I'm happy to. I wouldn't be sponsored by someone I didn't already want to use, so I wouldn't
Yeah.
be. That's why I'm only sponsored by HQ Prop and T Motor, I guess, because I don't really use much else. Like, and the other stuff I do use, they don't sponsor me just
Yeah.
because they don't. I'm not high profile enough, I guess, but I wouldn't accept a lower sponsorship, I guess, is what I'm saying, just because it's
Yeah.
free. It still has to be parts and equipment that I would love to promote on my own.
Yeah. Stuff that you
Yeah,
personally use and
yeah,
as a rule of thumb that you
yeah.
would want other
That's
people to
right.
want to use.
That's right. And you can't go
That's
wrong with HQ Prop or T Motor. You can never go wrong with them. They're T Motor might not always be the cheapest. I know they do have some good cheaper options as well, though. But you can't go wrong. Like if someone says, "Here's some T Motors" or "Here's some HQ Props," you're going to be like, "Oh, that's probably going to be pretty good."
yeah. You don't really think twice about it. You're not like,
Yeah, yeah,
I wonder if this is gonna burn out on me in like the first couple of flights. Or I wonder
yeah.
if it's gonna be like those single ESCs from back in the day.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Well, that's cool. And so to get these sponsors, did you mention that you approached them or did they approach you?
Um, well, T Motor was an interesting one because I had someone external to T Motor approach me
Right.
about it. I probably don't know how much detail I can share on that, but
You'd have to go into detail.
but
I'm just
like
curious on stuff.
I won't say who it was, but basically they brokered me a
Cool.
deal with T-Motor, which was quite cool. So it was basically, hey, T-Motor's looking for someone who's already passionate about their stuff. They'll provide XX in exchange for blah blah blah. If that sounds like you, then yeah. And I was like, yeah, that definitely sounds like me. So then
Cool.
and then I just spoke with them, and and we work something out,
Yeah.
which is really cool. And the FPV community is really, because it's so tight knit, you can just work with vendors and manufacturers like that. They're really approachable.
Yeah.
Because they want the same thing, I guess. They want more FPV. We
Yeah.
want more people
It
doing.
literally benefits everybody, right?
We want more people doing FPV to have more friends, and they want to make more money. So
Yes.
everyone wins.
Everyone wins. Everyone wins except we get broker. So
Oh yeah, true. That's
yeah,
that's a constant though.
that's true. That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's cool. So I guess what about Quad Junkie and HQ Prop then? Are they similar stories side of things, or like I'm just curious about if
Yeah,
somebody else is in the racing scene and they're looking, that they're putting in the time,
I
they're going hard at it.
yep.
What's sort of the approach?
So I approached both Quad Junkie and HQ Prop for sponsorship, and
Okay.
they were really receptive. Um, and that was mainly from probably my years, I guess, at this point of background of being quite prominent on social media. So basically, ever since I got into it, I would always post, like, even when I only did freestyle, I'd post a clip, a couple of logos on it or something. And this was something that I always did. Like if I went out and flew, I would post a video about it. Even
Yeah.
when I did race, I post DVR clips all the time, and I still do it just because it's like part of the hobby for me at this point.
Yeah.
So naturally, that's a billboard. When you think about it, if someone's doing that consistently, that's a billboard.
That is.
So HQ and Quad Junkie were quite receptive, I guess for that reason, and that's really all it takes is just being consistent. You can't expect sponsorship for nothing, just because you think your video's great, or you
Yeah.
think you're really fast now. Um, it's not all about that. It's a little bit about all of it.
It's
Uh,
about, I guess, also your involvement in actually talking with people and becoming
yeah,
known, because hey, it's
that's
one
right.
thing, you could be the bloody best pilot out there and
Yep.
you could be the fastest person in the world, but if you're not going to events and you're not
Yeah.
or even if you're a shit person, like nobody's gonna want to work with you if you're like a dick at these events and you go in like, oh, I'm the man, sort of thing. Like, you know, it's like, I
Yeah.
think, yeah, so it sounds like, provided that you put in the time and you're like you're good at what you do, and consistency too, with hey, having some way of providing value back to the the sponsor. Like, for you, that was by putting logos onto your videos and stuff at the start of them. As long as you've got a way to provide value, I guess you can go and approach somebody, and the worst they can say is no.
That's right.
Yeah.
The worst they can say is no, and I've been said no to by plenty of people.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit, some people may have a little anxiety about that, and that's fair enough. It is a little nerve wracking, but like, if you don't ask, you don't get. Um,
That's it.
and when they say no, you can just close that message and carry on with your day.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not the end of the world. But yeah, definitely just put yourself out there more. Like if that's something you want to do, if you want to make FPV more like a bigger part of your life, and be sponsored and stuff like that, you do need to just put a lot more time into it, really, into all the aspects of it.
Nothing comes for free, and that's
Nothing.
included for even just getting the sponsorships in the first place. So
Exactly, exactly. It takes hard work just to get that. So might not even feel like it's worth it for you.
yeah, well, it's a great point. I mean, that's the whole, that's where sponsorships come in handy, though, for like,
Yeah,
like, yeah. Anyways, thank you, my friend, for actually coming on. Where
no
can
worries.
where can people go and find your DVR? Where can we
Yeah.
connect? Where are we
So
going?
you'll see I'm most active on Instagram, but you'll find me on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. So my YouTube is just Kuato FPV, just one word, Kuato FPV. Instagram, Kuato _FPV. Twitter, Kuato FPV. Yeah,
And all those links are down in the description below, by the way. So
yeah.
you
Even
can
if you just
go
Google
to
Kuato, even if you just Google Kuato FPV, because I've been doing it since 2016, there's probably some random post that'll pop up.
there is some 2016 photo of you holding a quad,
Yeah.
like for sure.
Yeah, and you'll link to my latest stuff from there, no doubt.
Really quickly before you disappear, if you aren't actually in a position right now to help out the podcast financially, you can seriously still help out for free by leaving a comment if you're watching on YouTube, or a review if you're listening in on Apple Podcast and Spotify. Appreciate you all. We'll see you next week.